The hosts of bracketology are experts in nothing. They claim no advanced knowledge or profound insights. Instead, they are just three judgmental idiots who really like to bloviate their own opinions whenever given the chance. Take what they have to say with a grain of salt, or not at all. You'll probably be better off that way.
All right, fellas, I've developed a game for you all.
Yeah, this went so well last time.
I'm hoping I remember all the details of this game, but it's a pretty simple game. It is called, let me get my little screen share up here, make sure I share the audio as well.
Am I going to get copyrighted again?
Yeah, it doesn't have copyright.
No, we'll be okay. Brief clips. Easily will pass. No problem. All right, here we go. This week we're playing Rock or Croc. So okay. I have for you a series of heavy metal band names. Now, as you may know, heavy metal band names can get somewhat a little off the rocker. They can get a little wild. So I'm going to present to you a series of heavy metal band names. There will be 3 on each slide. One will be real. The other 2 will not be. Okay. And you have to determine which one is the correct, true heavy metal band name.
I feel like we're going to make a lot of metalheads mad.
Probably.
Okay.
Are you ready to play Rock or Croc?
Sure.
All right, here we go. First, Gorgy, Gorgasm, or Corporal Punishment?
Do one of us have to go first, or are we just...
No, you can talk it out.
We just okay. Are we a team, or are we going against each other?
You're against each other, but you can still,
Gorgy
friendly game.
Is funny.
Yeah.
Gorgasm. And Corporal Punishment. I think, here's the thing. I do like metal, generally speaking, although my metal is probably not...
Your metal is not the type of metal that any of these bands play. No.
Yeah, no.
Your metal is like their metal mixed with like Hanson. Like it brings it down a level,
Sure. I guess.
Is it called rock?
First of all, fuck both of you. I judge my bands by how their screams are, and that sounds creepier when I say it out loud.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with B. I'm going to go with Gorgasm.
Okay.
I think A is funnier and C is kind of wittier. I'm going to go with C.
All right. So let's see. Matt, you said B?
Yep.
And Dan, you said C. Okay.
I did.
Actual answer is B. Gorgasm. We got a
we
point
both
for Matt.
missed it.
No, that's what I said.
Yeah, no.
Oh, damn it.
Yeah, Matt got it right. Point for Matt. Goodness gracious.
Both
All right.
missed it, like you're trying to gaslight me into realizing.
No. I'm able to keep track of the score. I've got it right here.
Okay.
And just so Gorgasm. Here's a brief sample just so we can experience them together. So yeah, that was a clip from their song "Stab Wound Intercourse." Which it's a real band. That's their real song, "Stab Wound Intercourse."
When do they tour?
I don't, I thought about really doing some real reporting on this and giving you backgrounds and details about this, but I decided I didn't want my search history to contain some of the words that come up in this game, and so I stopped that process. So what I can tell you is that we just heard about 6 seconds of the word "stab wound intercourse" by Gorgasm. That's about it. That's all I know. All right, next one. Repulsive penises, nauseating dicks, revolting cocks. By the way, also, hold on, I want to go back. I do want to say, for you guys that said that some of them were witty or funny, thank you. I appreciate that.
You came up with them?
Yeah, man, I came up with these. I didn't even, let me tell you what, I thought about ChatGPTing them, and I was like, nah, I'm going to do this on my own. These are off the dome.
All right. So
Again, I also didn't want to ask ChatGPT to give me synonym names for things like nauseating dicks, repulsive penises, and revolting cocks. I didn't want that in my history. So instead, it just used my brain meats.
Yeah.
on
come
that
up with
note,
this.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you my answer, and then I'm going to tell you why I think it's the answer. I think it's C, revolting cocks, because cocks is funner to say than dicks or penises.
Yeah, I'm also going with C, and knowing that now that I know that it was you that came up with that, repulsive penises makes so much more sense. So that is definitely not getting my vote. I'm going with C, repulsive cocks.
Revolting cocks.
Revolting cocks, sorry.
I love that there's a part of you that goes, repulsive penises? That sounds like something Scott would say. Oh, man. I'm happy to report, actually. You are correct. It is revolting cocks. Repulsive penises was the first one that I came up with immediately.
Before you even had this game in mind? Just in the bathroom?
This is a band name. Called it.
I had to sit there and think for a few minutes before I landed on nauseating dicks. Like, that one took a minute to get to, but repulsive penises stood out. Yeah, Revolting Cocks is the real band name. That's a point for both of you. Good job. Matt still is in the lead 2-1. Let's take a moment to listen to some Revolting Cocks. So yeah, that was about 8 seconds of their cover, Do You Think I'm Sexy? Which, honestly, I didn't mind.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I can handle that. 2 days ago when I made this game and put it all together, I had that song stuck in my head the rest of the day.
Well, I'm glad you can handle your revolting cocks.
As a matter of fact, I played Fortnite with Matt that night, and I was sitting here singing it, and I was like, "Oh shit, I gotta be quiet. He's gonna ask why I'm singing that song." Yeah, no, I can handle some revolting cocks.
All right.
On that note,
2-1. Matt's in the lead. Dan, you got one more chance to tie it up.
Okay. I was going to ask how many more of these we got.
I got you. Here we go. A.
hold
on, let me get started. A. Paracocadiodimycosarcosamosis? Sure. B. Lilin Fairplugawinigal. C. Pneumonon ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconosis. There you go. Pronounced perfectly.
Nailed it.
Which one? Matt, are you okay?
Yeah. Dan, what do you think?
Are you worried about editing that part?
I mean, not particularly.
I mean,
Oh, man, if you're not watching this on YouTube, again, this is a prime moment. You need to at least just go get a glimpse of what those words that I just tried to spell look like. I will tell you, one of those 3 words is 38 letters long.
I'm gonna go with A. I have no specific reason other than I'm feeling like an A.
I'm going to need you to go ahead and say the name of that band.
Yeah, please, just for the record.
Paracocadiodamycosarcomucosis. I feel
Perfect.
like for the people listening, I feel like they're probably worried that I just had a stroke.
I was going to say the same thing.
Don't worry.
I'm fine.
So here's my thought. A looks like just a bunch of random letters put together. C looks like a bunch of random words put together.
And B?
B looks like a foreign language of some kind, maybe Welsh.
Okay.
Oh, he's definitely Googling.
I'm gonna go with C because I want to try to say it out loud. Pneumono ultra microscopic volcanoconiosis.
I think he was practicing. He was thinking about that the whole time you were talking.
And butchering my
So
pronunciation.
we have A and C, right?
I
can tell
actually
you
do think it's B, but I'm going with C because I wanted to say it out loud.
official vote C, official vote A. You're correct. B is actually a location. I do believe it is Nordic of some type, Welsh, Norwegian, something like that. It's the second longest place name in the entire world. A is the correct answer. Wait, who had A?
That was Dan.
That's Dan, so we tied it up. So C is an actual lung disorder. I can't tell you exactly what it was. I looked it up, but that was a few days ago, and brain knows so good. A is the name of an actual Mexican heavy metal band. Their name is basically small portions of a variety of different medical terms that they just threw together. That is nonsensical. It doesn't mean anything. Let's take a moment to listen to them. And Matt did not like that. That was their track Zombies.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very fitting with our Halloween theme.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciated the kind of slow build to the growl. Yeah, that was good.
The growl did sound like a zombie. So
It ended in a
Matt, how do you
tie.
feel?
Do we have a tiebreaker?
No, I did not prepare a tiebreaker. So what we'll do is we're just going to carry the score over into whatever the next game is.
Okay.
We'll remember that months from now whenever we come up with another one.
Paracoxicity odomycosisproctitis arcomocosis.
I know the sarcomacosis, like that's part of that is supposed to come from sarcoma.
Is that a type of coma?
No.
Okay.
It's a lung disease, isn't it?
I don't know. It sounded like that song had lung disease.
All right. That has been Rock or Croc. Thank you to both my lovely contestants. We end with a tie score. I like that. I'll have to come up with a tiebreaker or another game. And we'll have to settle this.
Thank you to the bands for existing.
Yes, all three of them whose names I definitely remember.
Please don't yell at us for putting this on YouTube. Clips of your songs. We're crediting you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Bracketology, the podcast that definitively decides all things tournament bracket style. I am a co-host, Scott.
I am also a co-host, Matt.
And I am the last co-host, Dan.
Couldn't keep the cadence. Anyway,
Nope.
Welcome back this week as we continue the Horror Icon Championship. We are now into round 2. Kicking us off just as we did last time. We're going to start on the north end of the bracket. What do we got? What do we got up there, Matt?
So we have Universal Monsters. We've got the Mummy versus the Wolfman and Dracula versus the Invisible Man versus, well, I guess it's not versus yet, but and also the Paranormal, which is Annabelle versus Chucky. We've got the Doll Off versus Pennywise versus Pazuzu. The Demon Off, which sounds like a Russian name.
It does sound like, yeah. Dan, where do you want to start?
Let's start on the east side of the bracket. Paranormal.
All right. Up first, Annabelle versus Chucky, the Doll Off.
So, right out the gate, I would like to call out that this feels like a letdown in both former matchups.
You think so? You feel like this should be Pinhead versus Samara?
I mean, I do 100% think Samara should be moved forward, but Annabelle versus Chucky, creepy dolls. We talk about iconic imagery when it comes to horror in general, both inside and outside of movies and TV shows and other types of media. Fucking dolls are creepy, man. Like,
I think that's why we're here, though. I
Yeah.
think, I think you can put, like, you could put up a solid argument for both Pinhead and Samara had they been up against maybe other characters in the first round. But with Annabelle, her creep factor is so high. And we even talked about this a little bit, I think, when we were debating them, because they both made it through for opposing reasons. Annabelle got through because her horror factor is so high. She's so creepy looking, and the visual and everything that she created is very terrifying. And she's somewhat iconic in that way. Chucky is an icon of the horror film industry who's usually horror, but he gets kind of goofy and silly from time to time. He's also guilty of those one-liners you mentioned in our last episode. But he's iconic. He was in Wade more, in that space. And that's exactly what now we've got to debate those two out, right?
Yep.
We put them both through for opposing reasons. Now we got to figure out which one actually carries more weight. And that's what makes this particular matchup, I think, interesting and difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I want Dan to kind of weigh in at some point, but I think Annabelle. All right, I have two things that I want to say. First of all, did either of you have like a grandparent or an aunt or uncle or somebody where you went to their house and then one of the rooms was filled with dolls?
I did not.
Because
No.
I
Yeah,
did,
no.
and it was terrifying. Like, there's something about dolls, just generally speaking, that just sitting there, especially for long periods of time, and like you start to think that they're moving, and it gets a visceral reaction, right? Is this what's supposed to be an innocent toy for a child turned demonic, turned evil, turned supernatural in some way? It is creepy.
Now know. I apologize. Go ahead.
No.
I was just saying, I now know what I want to order off eBay for the next time we do a dude sleepover.
Shit, that might just be a Christmas present.
However,
You might get a delivery sometime around December 25th and open it up, and you're going to be greeted with the creepiest fucking doll.
this is not. No. However, I did
We'll
recently
do an overnight live stream of you trying to sleep
Shut
with it
the
in the room.
Fuck up.
Sorry.
I
I just had a great
tomorrow,
idea.
damn it.
We had to build on it. I like this idea, Dan.
I have
Overnight
to-
stream of him trying to sleep with it in the room.
I have to work tomorrow. Leave me alone. I did recently see a video of the real Annabelle doll needing to be moved from one holy chest, I guess, to another one. And all of the precautions that are taken with that, like the real Raggedy Ann creepy doll. I'm not saying that it's real. I'm not saying I believe.
But the actual physical thing in which everything's based on.
Correct.
Mhm.
And they had a priest. They had somebody was like doing an incantation in Latin. They had holy
Were they
water.
burning incense
Legitimately,
and sage?
like all of it, everything. And then they got done, and both of the guys that were like doing the actual moving were sweating because of how scared they were. Like, it was anyway. I think Annabelle having a bit more horror than Chucky. I think Annabelle's an icon. I think it's a modern day icon of horror.
Perhaps showing my hand a little bit here when it comes to my idea of the paranormal as a whole, but that's ridiculous. I'm just pointing. I'm just gonna say, like, that's ridiculous.
Look, I'm not saying that I believe in the paranormal, that I believe
But there
in
are people
ghosts.
that do to a significant degree.
There are, but I'd like to. You know what I mean? Like, I want there to be an afterlife. I want ghosts
Sure.
to be around.
Sure.
Because I
Do
think,
you?
yeah, I want to believe that it exists.
But would you be cool with the ghosts like we hunt in Phasmophobia? Would you be cool with those things existing?
I mean, I'd be fine with, like, if it was just a ghost, right? If they just threw stuff off the shelf and things like that. But as soon as they start like killing people, then that gets a little bit too far. Like I imagine when I die being able to haunt somebody. I want that to happen.
Just to be able to like continue to watch.
I didn't say that, you fucking voyeur.
Not in the creeper. I didn't mean like in a GTA stats kind of way. I meant like a to keep watch over people you care about.
Yeah, I mean, and just, to be able to see what's going on, and again, maybe to haunt people that have done me wrong at some point.
No, I mean, I support all of that. I'm just saying that I don't know that there's a lot of reality to anything that would make the need for that pomp and circumstance around moving a doll. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but I do think that has been bred from what Annabelle has been, right, and has become.
Yep.
I don't know. I think, again, to your point, Scott, it really falls on that debate, which weighs more, the horror icon or the horror aspect or the icon aspect, because I think Annabelle, I don't think she is very iconic. Like, you don't really see her or that doll in Spirit of Halloween or in Hot Topic or whatever the case may be. Whereas Chucky, even though it has been a long time since a decent Chucky movie has come out, is still very prevalent. But on the other side, I think Annabelle is much scarier than Chucky. Like, the concept of this thing being possessed and all this like terrible things it has the power to do is way scarier to me than Chucky. So that's where I've been kind of debating internally this entire time, is which one of those sides weighs more, or maybe which one is more of that category than the other one is to theirs, if that makes sense. Like, is Annabelle's scare factor large enough to outweigh Chucky's iconness?
I'm not saying that there weren't horror movies between the 90s and when The Conjuring came out, right? But I do feel like The Conjuring and Annabelle as a kind of inspiration for that created the modern day horror kind of, especially supernatural or paranormal aspect, the theme for modern horror. So to me, I think in terms of icon, that was a weird way to say that. Iconicness, icon, being an icon. I do think that weighs. I think Annabelle does have that, and I think that along with the creep factor makes her my vote.
So, Dan, while you were talking there, you made an interesting comment that got me thinking, and I had to do a little quick research. I realized that it was probably like you were going off experience, but I realized it's probably been a while since any one of the three of us has been in a Hot Topic. So I wanted some data to really be able to back up what you said about seeing Annabelle in Hot Topic versus Chucky.
I was in Hot Topic within the last 6 months.
No comment. Moving on. So I just went to Hot Topic's website. I searched Annabelle and I searched Chucky. By the way, we're spelling Annabelle wrong on a bracket. It's got 2 N's. But I just realized. I just learned. I want you to take a quick guess. How many Annabelle items does the Hot Topic website have? Don't Google. Don't search, Matt. Look at your camera, not your monitor.
Can
take
I
a
put
guess.
the extra N in?
Oh, yeah, you could do that. How many Annabelle items does the Hot Topic website have? Just throw out a number. Both of you.
73.
Yeah, 52.
Okay. It was 10. Guess how many items Chucky has?
12.
123.
302. Again, we've discussed the value of merchandising in past brackets, and I'm not going to go into that again because it's salt in a wound. But I do think that speaks to the iconic nature of Chucky. It's a more recognizable IP. It's a more familiar IP. It's a more beloved IP, which is kind of strange to say, but it's beloved for a variety of reasons, because of the horror aspect of it, because of the serial killer aspect of it, because of the campiness and comedy of it. Like it attracts a wide audience because of what it is. I do think in the grand scheme, like Annabelle is creepier. It is more the thing of nightmares to me than what Chucky is. But Chucky's iconic level, his recognition and all that, I think that puts him over the top for me.
Yeah, I got to agree. Again, they fall into those two very distinct buckets. I just think Chucky's bucket is larger than Annabelle is scary. So,
all right. So it looks like Chucky moves on. This is not going to turn into another SpongeBob, but I'm not exactly pleased with this side of the bracket so far.
I'm telling you what, I did not really anticipate that this podcast would be such a strain on our friendships. Only like, what are we now, 115-ish episodes in? Or not 115, sorry, way off there. Like 35. Like what? 35 episodes. Sorry, I got ahead of us. 35. I'm imagining this replaying again next year. We just reused this whole bracket, so I was getting ahead. We're like 35 some episodes in, and it's really put a strain on some friendships. All right, up next, we've got Pennywise versus Pazuzu. I think Pazuzu gets disqualified just for having such a fun name to say. Pazuzu. I should stop saying it. I feel like I'm going to summoning it by saying it so many times.
Yeah.
I think so. We had this conversation last week, right, about the inspiration that some of these icons have been for other things. I think that Pazuzu and The Exorcist as a whole has been an inspiration for, again, kind of going back to my last argument, what modern day paranormal type movies have become, right? Think about like the Paranormal Activity stuff,
sure.
Right? Things like that. That's basically just, the Blair Witch version of The Exorcist in a way. And I think that is, those movies scared the fuck out of me. Like Paranormal Activity, even going in, right? This isn't the Blair Witch all over again, where we think it's real for 2 months and then we all realize that it's a fucking movie that's making money. With Paranormal Activity, that it's fake, but they do such a good job of like setting up the scene. Oh man, that shit. And I think that draws directly from Pazuzu, and I think there are many others like it. Pennywise has mainly inspired my nightmares for the last 35 years. I hate clowns, y'all.
Pennywise is an interesting case because, again, technically speaking, it falls into that category of shapeshifter. It's just a really shitty shapeshifter. So it's like it's not as terrifying as the general concept of shapeshifting is to me, because you only really ever see it as a spider, a demon, or a clown. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to fucking avoid all three of those things anyway. So it doesn't really matter.
Well, and I do think that, like, when you talk about the shape-shifting clowns, there's an episode of Supernatural. It's season 2, I believe, of Supernatural, where they have a clown. It's basically Pennywise, but done way creepier, where like shows up at the kid's house, like knocking on the back window, asking to be let in. Like it's just that whole idea though comes from it and comes from Pennywise. Like that, the fact that clowns are looked at as a something that is attractive to children is terrifying. I had a lamp. I don't know that I've told you all this. Like I had a lamp when I was a kid. And I legitimately can still see it vividly in my mind, where it's like a big top with like 3 clowns climbing up the tent towards the light bulb. Imagine as a 4-year-old waking up in the middle of the night, and that's the only light source, is just illuminating 3 creepy ass clowns climbing up a fucking tent.
They're trying to climb up to the light bulb to take it.
Dude.
Yeah,
it's
turn it off so they can get to you.
Matt is going to have a nightmare about that specifically tonight.
Yep.
I hate
We just
clowns.
solidified it.
I think, The Exorcist is absolutely iconic. And I think to a large extent, it revolutionized the horror genre, right? It legitimately changed the game. But it changed the game a long ass time ago. Pennywise definitely has a little bit of recency bias. And I think if you're talking about iconic images, that mask or the face of Pennywise is everywhere. It is absolutely everywhere. And I mean, Pennywise obviously came from the book It, written by Stephen King, who many have described as the father of modern horror writing. I want to give The Exorcist all the flowers in the world because of how groundbreaking that movie was and the fact that people actually died creating it. But honestly, I did not know that that demon's name was Pazuzu until way after the movie. And I think that that takes away from the iconic nature of the actual demon from the movie.
So there was a more recent version of The Exorcist that came out last year, 2023. It was called The Exorcist: The Believer. And I just was looking at its IMDb page, which you would think would be safe.
So uncomfortable.
Dude, from a recency perspective, yeah, it has come back and has had a couple movies that are more fitting towards the visual natures of what it was. But I don't know. While you maybe didn't know the name Pazuzu, you definitely knew the name Reagan, right? You definitely knew what Pazuzu looked like when it's in Reagan. Like, The Exorcist is so iconic. To me, it transcends decades.
This one is kind of tough too, because I do think both of them have very strong icon backgrounds, but for different reason. I think Pennywise is much more visually recognizable and, again, marketable and recent. I think Pazuzu, though, not necessarily the character, but what you're talking about, the legacy of The Exorcist as a whole. But that's not necessarily the same thing, right? If I'm thinking about these two just as the characters themselves, I mean, the idea of being possessed by a demon is pretty scary. But Pennywise is, I mean, he's abducting children. We don't even really fully understand what Pennywise is doing, right? He's abducting them. He's eating them over time, but they're like in this suspended state.
He feeds on their fear.
There's some kind of orgy involved.
What?
Read the book.
Yeah. So yeah, he's keeping them like in a constant state of fear so he can feed off of it from their nightmares, basically. That's more terrifying and just, again, more visually iconic, I feel like, and recognizable. I get the weight and the gravitas that The Exorcist brings to the table, and certainly its influence in other media. I love the Paranormal Activity movies, the first like 3 of them anyway. I think they lean a lot, again, into the jump scare aspect of things, but you're right that they built on it in a way that made this paranormal extreme thing seem believable and relatable and engaging. A more modernized take where The Exorcist is a bit dated. I feel like I have to go Pennywise.
Matt, who are you voting for?
I mean, to me, I think the more iconic of the two is Pazuzu.
So is that your vote?
Is he more horrifying, though?
Yeah.
Okay, so then that's just your vote. He's both. He's more of both. He's more horror and more icon.
100%. I mean, look, the Exorcist is just too. It weighs too much on the horror industry as a whole compared to Pennywise.
Look, I get it. If we were arguing best horror movie or most influential horror movie or something, sure, but we're talking about the characters themselves.
Yeah, but what is iconic, right? I mean, iconic is inspiration. Iconic is stamping a legacy in time. Like there are people that will watch The Exorcist because of what Pazuzu does and the what the character, because it's not just jump scares. There are those, right? There is the gross, there's the vomiting of pea soup, but there's also the psychological aspect to the idea of Pazuzu, where a demon can know everything about everybody that's involved and will call people on their shit like that in front of everybody while you're worried about just trying to exorcise this demon. Like it's, to me, that's scarier than a clown in a sewer.
Pennywise also knows everything about everyone involved and uses that to his advantage. And
but
he also has the shape shifting.
I think to me, though, it's the idea of, you know what it is? All right. I don't know if this is going to sway an argument either way, but it's the idea of being possessed by a demon. And in my mind, that looks like me being locked away in my own mind, watching as this demon does all kinds of things in my name, basically.
I do think that's a valid point. I saw an interview, Dan. I think earlier you made a joke about a stroke, but I saw an interview with Aubrey Plaza. She was talking to Howard Stern, and she had a stroke when she was 20, just like a freak thing. She had gotten to a friend's house, was taking off her jacket, and just mid-sentence had a stroke. And she can recall it vividly because she was still young when it happened. And they're testing her for it, and she's talking about how they're asking her a very simple question: what did you have for breakfast this morning? And it's when she realized that your brain and you are not the same thing, because she was thinking it's simple, yogurt, just say the word yogurt, but her brain could not do that, and she could not form and project the word yogurt. So she was in that kind of scenario. She was locked in her own mind, unable to control her brain and unable to control what she was doing. And that legit, I mean, hearing her talk about that in that reference was like, that was pretty terrifying. Like that was a scary thing to think about. And then you're taking it to another level because not only can you not control it, but something else is controlling it.
Well, something else is controlling it, and just the trauma associated with that after the fact. Let's say you're possessed and it gets exorcised, but all the things that it did while you're possessed, and you have vivid memories of it and things that you can never take back. And realistically, how many people are actually going to believe what occurred, right? Like to me, that is much more terrifying than being kidnapped by a clown. And
I think this conversation clarifies for me more than ever that you suffer from anxiety at a greater degree than I do, because I did not think it through that far at all. But you make a valid point.
They did make a whole movie about that exact situation. Get Out. I don't know if you all.
I will not watch Get Out. I won't do it. I won't do that. I won't watch. Look, I love Jordan Peele. I think he's an amazing filmmaker. I think he's hilarious, and he's a great actor. I will not watch anything that man puts into a theater.
Dude, I've watched Get Out, and I watched, what was the other one I watched? Nope, maybe.
Nope
I liked
was the
both
alien
of those.
one. The other one was
I didn't watch
the
Nope.
shapeshifter one. Get Out and fuck, this is gonna bother me now.
I've watched two. I didn't watch Nope. I started it, and then I think Ashley and I started it, and then right at the beginning, there's a scene with some. Yes, I watched. Oh no, okay, it was Nope. I watched. Us is the one I did not watch, because right at the beginning of it, there's a scene with some bunnies, and they make some noises, and it sounds like distress. And Ashley and I were both like, "Nope, not interested." But he's got another one, the one where, or maybe I'm thinking of M. Night Shyamalan, the one with the beach where when they're on the beach, time is sped up. Yeah,
that is M. Night Shyamalan.
Oh, okay, never mind. I don't want to watch that movie, though.
Yeah, I don't want to watch that either. Look, I'm just saying, like,
I don't like stuff that happens to kids, and in that movie, like seeing the people watch their kids just grow up like that, and that's triggering for me. I'm not interested in that. Man, I don't know if you swayed my vote with your point about Pazuzu though, and being like trapped in your own brain watching this stuff happen.
Well, especially because I mean, she's a child to begin with, right? And almost guaranteed. Like, think about it. In the real world, you get. I'm just adding to my point now. You get possessed, and somebody, let's say your mom, like it is in the movie, identifies that something's wrong with you and goes to doctor after priest and talking to all these people and nobody believing, and then eventually, like, how long are you stuck like that while things are happening just because it's not normal? I don't
Dan,
know.
what do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, look,
Matt is getting stressed out thinking about it.
I get where you're coming from, Matt, and that would seriously be terrifying. But I still think when it comes to both the horror and the icon aspects of this, Pennywise is greater. I think Pennywise, when he was played by Tim Curry, was terrifying. I think Pennywise, when he was played by Skarsgård, was absolutely terrifying. And in a time where they could actually put the digital effects behind it to really make it that terrifying. The Exorcist, I think, is iconic in a different way. It has generated so many movies, but it's not about Pazuzu specifically. It is about that experience, the exorcism, the demon latching onto you, which did not originate with Pazuzu and has been done in a plethora of other ways. We aren't talking about a demon latching onto you and possession. We're talking about a specific demon, Pazuzu, in a specific movie. Whereas Pennywise is Pennywise. He is the only one of his kind. He is definitely iconic and terrifying. I think Pennywise wins this.
Yeah, I think as much as I hate to say it, and trust me, I really hate to say it, I think Dan's right. I don't think it changed. I think you made some really good points, Matt, but I don't think it's enough to change my vote. I think it stays Pennywise.
All right.
God, that tastes worse than the Oreo Coke from last week.
By the way, Bracketeers, I still have some unopened cans. So if you are interested, hit us up in the comments and I will mail them to you for a like and a subscribe.
All right, so that moves Pennywise on to the next round. They will take on Chucky.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. What do you
And versus
Pennywise?
I have to say, I do feel like some true horror fans
Are going to
are
be
going to
pissed.
have a real problem with our paranormal bracket getting down to Chucky and Pennywise when it started out with people like Bagul, Pazuzu, Samara, and Pinhead on it.
Yeah,
We might.
I've been in the right on most of these votes. You guys have just voted the other direction. However, that moves us to our second bracket for the day, which is going to be Universal Monsters, which I can relax a little bit and stop thinking about the other ones. These ones don't freak me out as much. Where do we want to begin?
Let's take it from the top.
Yeah.
The Mummy versus Wolfman.
Mummy versus the Wolfman. So, again, I think that we kind of need to expand these beyond just the initial, right? Like, because Universal Monsters, the idea here is these are monsters. These are the ones you think of with Halloween. The Mummy is more than just Brendan Fraser's The Mummy, right? It's more than just the movies.
These are the ones you're first introduced to as a kid.
Mm-hmm. But the Mummy, being an ancient pharaoh, gifted with mystical powers in some way, waking up hundreds or thousands of years after you died to then haunt and creep people the fuck out. And the Wolfman, werewolf. Change under a full moon, lycanthrope, first of all.
Lycanthrope?
Yeah.
If you say so.
I do. Thorpe is a name. Thrope is a scientific term.
As the person here who has been a DM, I will take your word for it.
So the werewolf, the creepy man, uncontrollable on full moons. It has to be one of the best sets of lore in these monsters.
Yeah.
Is the werewolf, right? And not just the werewolf, but any kind of human to anthropomorphic beast, lycanthrope of some kind.
Well, and really, I could be wrong about this, but I think the Mummy, in terms of like horror, um, like folk tales, hasn't been around all that long, right? I think werewolves have been around much longer.
Are you
And
talking about just like lore based?
yeah,
Okay. Because the original Mummy movie was what? Fucking,
Early cinema.
yeah, like real early on. I don't even see it. When I Google the Mummy movie, it just brings up Brendan Fraser.
1932.
32. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
long time. That's almost 100 years.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of like werewolf lore, that has been around hundreds of years. You know what I mean?
I do, yeah.
And
But
that's
did mummy lore as a horror thing start with the movies, or did it? I mean, did it predate that in literature though?
I don't know. This is all research we should do before.
So
No,
the Mummy
having-
lore has multiple origins: the discovery of King Tut's tomb, the writings of Bram Stoker, the practice of medical cannibalism. All of those per Google's AI, the earliest of which is 1903 for Stoker's novel. There is, I will say, the medical cannibalism thing is kind of interesting because the what was it, early 20th century, early 1900s, like once mummies started getting discovered and you'd find pharaoh's tombs, British people, not saying a whole lot else there that people don't already
wink,
know,
wink.
would literally buy mummies to like grind up into dust and take as medicine. Like the wild
Yes, it was used in medication.
shit. But it's also one of those things that I think that like the idea of a pharaoh's curse goes back to ancient Egypt. Like the
It
idea
also
of
makes great beef jerky.
The Pharaoh's curse.
No, the mummies. But yeah, you consume a mummy, you're cursed by the pharaoh.
Yeah.
But you know, like even just opening the tomb of a pharaoh and getting
Yeah.
a curse, like those have been around since who knows.
Yeah, I mean, again, they're both in this category for a reason, right? And I think, I don't know, I kind of think you start splitting hairs a little bit when you talk about how long that lineage has existed at this point, because again, they both have reached a certain level of iconic status. I think something else that's interesting about them, and I guess this is probably true for everyone in this category, is the range that they have, right? You can play everything from, Brendan Fraser and the action thriller, paranormal, super powered mummy to Scooby Doo villain and everywhere in between, right? Same thing with Wolfman. You can, like, I don't know if you guys ever saw the movie Ginger Snaps. Have you ever seen that?
Mm-mm.
Oh, man. It is a Canadian horror film. Dude, it is like definition of cult classic. It's this Canadian horror film that it's about these two, like, high school age girls, I think, if I remember correctly, and one of them gets bit by a werewolf and starts to turn as well. It's campy and it's terrible and it's a cult classic, and I think they made 2 sequels. It's B cinema at its best, C at its worst. But it's gory and it's horror and all. It's and then again, you have on the other end of the spectrum, you have Scooby Doo villain, and so it's like there's something to be said about that. But again, I guess, I mean, if that can be said about this entire category, maybe that's not even relevant for 2 more rounds.
I mean, I think that we just need to really focus. Like, I think the horror aspect of this kind of goes out the window for most of these because just the category itself.
Mhm.
and more look at the iconic nature of them.
Mhm.
To Dan's point, like the Wolfman is the idea of a Wolfman of werewolves goes back hundreds, if not thousands of years to hearing
No, it's
howling in the night. Huh?
definitely thousands of years. Like in Rome, there were stories of wolfmen, but the idea of something changing from man to wolf goes like even further.
Yeah, I mean, the Native American culture has talking about spirit animals, right? It was the same idea. Um, there are so many things that go into it, but you don't often see kids carrying around a wolfman's head as a candy holder on Halloween night. You do see that with the mummy. I also just really like ancient Egyptian lore, and I kind of like the mummy. I'm gonna go with the mummy. That's my vote. I'm throwing it out there to get us moving.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence about this because realistically, neither one of these are scary to me. I
Mhm.
think werewolf is a little bit more scary, and I think the lore is deeper, right? But we're not really discussing werewolf lore. We're discussing Wolfman, and we're not discussing all mummies. We're discussing the mummy, right? And I think the mummy is just a little bit more iconic of a movie than the Wolfman. So I'm gonna agree. I think mummy gets my vote.
Yeah, I think in the end, repeat most of what you guys said. Just make it sound a little more intelligent, and that would be my point. So I'm going to say the mummy as well.
You've mispronounced so many words tonight, and
I
you
believe
want.
that. I believe that.
All right. Well, then that gets us into our last matchup. Dan, who we got?
Dracula versus the Invisible Man.
Dracul. This one is the easiest one for me.
Same.
I mean,
I,
realistically, huh?
I see a lot of Invisible Man merch.
It's all over the place. All over the place. Realistically, Dracula is, and I've used this word multiple times, the progenitor of modern day horror. Like, and it's not modern by any means, right? Bram Stoker wrote um, Dracula, what, in 1907 or something
Sure.
like that. It's relatively new, but going back to what we were just talking about with the Wolfman, the idea of vampirism and drinking blood and cannibalism in that way to be able to make up for what you can't get with food and to give you immortality and to give you all these fancy powers, Dracula's got that. Like that is a part of all kinds of shit that we see in today, even so much as the fucking wacky conspiracy theories about, drinking children's blood to maintain your youth, right? Like that
Yeah.
all comes from the idea of vampirism and Dracula.
1897, by the way.
1897. I was off by 8 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think out of probably everyone in this category, the Invisible Man is the most horrifying,
Mm-hmm.
but it's Dracula. I mean, there's not. There are few characters. There are few characters that are more iconic. Period. Whether we're talking horror or not, you know, kids know Mickey Mouse, they know SpongeBob, they know Bugs Bunny, they know Dracula. Like he's an early icon and stays that way. And you're introduced to him early as that cartoonish character, or in like a Hotel Transylvania. And then as you get older, your understanding of him develops and it becomes different. But you have that entire range of knowledge. Dracula's more iconic in that way, and I just period.
Yeah, I mean, I think even just the inspiration, right? Vlad the Impaler and turning into Dracul and that whole thing, like spawning from real life. Yeah, Dan, you got any thoughts?
Oh, without question, it's Dracula. Dracula. I mean, has been around all of our lives. There have been so many iterations of Dracula, Count Dracula, um, you know, I want to suck your blood. It's everywhere in our cultural zeitgeist. It
One
is,
blood. Ah, ah, ah.
yeah, the Count
Two
is
blood.
the Muppets. It got to be Dracula.
Yeah, man. And I think that the next time we revisit this part of the bracket, right? I think we maybe dive a little bit deeper into the powers associated with them, because I think that's really what's going to differentiate the Mummy and Dracula. But Dracula's it's Dracula, y'all. Like, there's an episode. Did y'all ever watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
No, not really.
All right. So I was a Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan. I still am. I'll watch it every now and then. But there's an episode where Dracula actually goes and meets Buffy, right? And it becomes this whole thing, and talking about like the powers. Dracula gets Buffy to convince herself to fall in love with him, and then quote unquote kills him at the end of the episode. Spoiler. But he's not actually dead. And he's like the only vampire that Buffy doesn't kill in some way, which is, I mean, I don't know. It's such a spanning character. It's incredible.
It will be an interesting matchup next time we come back to these two for sure.
Yep.
Not an easy one. All right. That does it. That's another episode of a podcast, fellas. We made it through the second round in the paranormal and universal monsters categories. What do we have next week?
Next week, we are taking on round 2 for the slashers division and the creatures division. So looking forward to getting into that.
One step closer to the Horror Icon Championship.
As always, we want to thank you for giving us a listen. You can interact with us on all of the social medias at Bracketology, BRACKETALLOGY. Matt, who we got to thank?
We would like to thank Carl Casey at White Bat Audio for the song Sanity Unravels, which we are using all bracket long for our theme, both intro and outro. So appreciate you, Carl.
All spoopy season.
Yeah, all of Oktuki.
No one calls it that. That's not a thing.
I know 3 people that call it that, plus me.
Stop trying to make that a thing. Dan, what else we got? Is that everything?
Yeah, no, just thank you for listening. Like and subscribe. Hit me up if you want Oreo flavored Coke.
Yeah. Shout out to Texas Tavern in Roanoke, Virginia. Go get yourself a bowl of chili. All right. That does it. Plug in my hometown. I'm Scott.
I still am within 45 minutes of my hometown. I'm Matt.
Go Spartans. I'm Dan.
Bye-bye.